Welcome to Rescue Paws Stories, your go-to place for heartwarming and emotional humans and animals stories. Officer Marcus Harlan had patrolled the same small-town beat in Springfield for nearly 17 years. But something about this winter was different. Each night as he passed by Elmwood Dog Park on his late shift, he noticed a small, curled-up shape beneath the same rusted park bench near the gate. At first, he assumed it was just a trick of the light, maybe a pile of leaves or a stray raccoon finding warmth. But night after night, through the icy winds and thin snowfall, that shape didn't move. Finally, one frigid evening when the temperature dipped dangerously low, Marcus pulled over, flashlight in hand. As he approached the bench, he was met with a pair of wide, trembling eyes, those of a tiny, underfed, golden puppy, no older than 5 months. The pup didn't bark, didn't growl, didn't even move, as if it had long accepted the cold and loneliness as a permanent part of its life. Its fur was matted and thinned, the paws raw from frost and cracked asphalt. But its gaze held something deeper than pain. It held waiting, longing, hope. Marcus knelt down, heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt in years. He carefully scooped the trembling pup into his arms, wrapping it inside his jacket, shielding it from the cold with his own body heat. The puppy didn't resist. Instead, it rested its head against his chest, as if it had been waiting just for him. He took the pup to the vet and was shocked to find out that while malnourished and frostbitten, it would recover. There was no microchip, no tags, nothing to indicate where it had come from. Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this puppy had a story, one it couldn't tell. For the next several days, the officer did something he hadn't done in years. He investigated not a crime, but a heartache. He canvassed the neighborhood, spoke to nearby residents, and even looked through missing pet posters. Then, an old woman from the area came forward. Through tears, she explained that the puppy had belonged to a little girl named Lily, who had tragically passed away in a car accident just 2 months prior. The girl had loved coming to Elmwood Dog Park, where she and her puppy Max would play every day after school. When Lily died, her parents, overcome with grief, gave Max away to a relative in another state. But somehow, Max had escaped and had found his way back, hundreds of miles to the park. The bench he slept under? It was the one where Lily would sit, tossing him treats and calling him her brave explorer. Max had waited there every single night since, as if he was holding on to a sliver of the past, hoping for her return. When Marcus heard this, he broke down right there in front of the woman, tears falling onto the cold pavement. The sight of the lonely pup, the devotion, the unbearable weight, it all hit him like a flood. He couldn't let Max be alone again. With the family's blessing, Marcus adopted Max. The bond between them grew instantly, as if fate had orchestrated the meeting. Every morning, they'd visit the same bench, not out of sorrow, but in quiet tribute to a little girl who'd loved beyond measure, and a dog who never stopped loving her back. As Officer Marcus stood there in the middle of the park, his uniform dampened by the misty air and eyes misty with memory, Max pressed his tiny frame against the officer's boot once more, looking up with those same pleading eyes. Marcus crouched down and held Max close to his chest, his breath hitching. The park was silent, except for the wind rustling through the trees and the distant sound of traffic. Yet in that moment, it felt like time had stopped. The connection between man and dog was instant, deeper than logic or reason. Marcus couldn't help but feel that Lily, the little girl who had tragically passed away last fall in the very neighborhood he patrolled, had sent this dog to him somehow. Her parents had often mentioned how much she'd wanted a puppy, and Max had her same quiet, calming presence. Every night, this puppy had returned to the same spot near the old carousel, curled up where Lily used to play, as if waiting for her to return. Marcus couldn't leave Max behind. He wrapped the small dog in his police jacket and gently lifted him into the passenger seat of his cruiser. Max didn't resist. He simply sighed and rested his head on Marcus's lap, as if he had finally found home. That night, Marcus didn't return to the station. Instead, he brought Max home. He laid out an old blanket near the fireplace, offered food and water, and simply sat there watching Max sleep soundly for the first time in days. But something happened as days passed. Marcus noticed that Max would sometimes bark at nothing or perk up his ears when certain songs played, especially a lullaby Lily's mother had once played during her vigil. It was as if Max knew her. Could it be that Lily had secretly cared for this dog before her death? Maybe Max had been her little secret friend, following her to the park, and after her passing, he had nowhere else to go but back to the place that smelled like her joy. Driven by a sense of purpose, Marcus decided to visit Lily's parents with Max. When they opened the door and saw the little pup, Lily's mother collapsed in tears. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the dog Lily called Whisper. She used to sneak him scraps and read books to him in the park." The truth hit like a thunderbolt. Max wasn't just a lost stray. He had belonged to Lily, and he had been mourning her in silence. From that day forward, Max became a part of Marcus's life and family. Together, they would visit schools to teach about compassion and animal care, sharing their story. Max wore a special tag shaped like a heart, engraved with the word "Whisper." He never again slept alone in that dog park. Instead, he now lay peacefully at the foot of Marcus's bed, carrying Lily's memory and showing the world that love, even between a little girl and a quiet puppy, never truly dies. Months passed, and Max, now called Whisper more often than not, had become more than just a companion. He was a healer. The bond between Marcus and Whisper deepened with every passing day, stitched together by mutual grief and the quiet comfort they found in each other. Marcus, once hardened by years on the force and the tragedies he'd witnessed, now found himself softened by the presence of this small soul who had known pain, but chose love. Whisper had a way of knowing when Marcus was having a hard day. He would nuzzle under his hand, rest his head in Marcus's lap during long nights, and accompany him on patrol, sitting proudly in the passenger seat like a loyal partner. The townspeople began to recognize them as a duo. The officer and the ghost dog, some affectionately called them, whispering tales of how a little girl's spirit still lived through the tiny German Shepherd pup. But one day, something unexpected happened. It was the anniversary of Lily's death. Marcus took Whisper to the park, where they placed fresh flowers beneath the old oak tree where Lily had once played. As Marcus sat on the bench, lost in memory, Whisper suddenly stood alert, his ears perked, nose twitching at the air. Then, without warning, he darted toward a small group of children playing nearby. Marcus stood up quickly, but then paused. Whisper wasn't acting out. He had gone straight to a small girl sitting quietly on the edge of the sandbox. She looked sickly pale and seemed lost in her own world. Whisper gently approached her, tail wagging, and licked her hand. The girl looked up and smiled for the first time in what seemed like ages. Her mother came rushing over, tears in her eyes. "She hasn't spoken in weeks," she said, "not since her father died." But she just whispered his name. Marcus knelt beside her, feeling something stir deep in his heart. Whisper had found another broken soul and started to mend it. From that day forward, Marcus knew Whisper's purpose wasn't just about honoring Lily. Whisper had become something bigger, a quiet guardian of those lost, those hurting, those in need of love. Years would pass. Whisper grew older, his muzzle graying, his steps slowing, but his spirit never dimmed. Every day he spent with Marcus was a gift. And when the time came, when Whisper laid his head down one final time, surrounded by love, Marcus buried him under that oak tree, right where it all began. The town came to the ceremony. Children brought flowers. An old woman read Lily's favorite poem. And Marcus, standing by the small stone that simply read, "Whisper, the dog who loved," whispered, "You saved me, buddy. You saved us all." And in the rustling of the leaves, in the soft breeze that danced through the trees, it felt like Lily was smiling too. Years later, a new officer in town named Elena Martinez joined the force. She was young, determined, and carried her own quiet grief. Her brother, also an officer, had died in the line of duty. On her first day, she was told to visit the old park near the east side of town, a place where things begin and end, the chief said with a smile. She found the oak tree, and beneath it, the stone that read, "Whisper, the dog who loved." Next to it, a faded photo of Officer Marcus with a little girl in a white dress standing beside a small pup. Elena sat down on the nearby bench, curious. She pulled out her phone and searched. Within moments, she was deep into the story of Officer Marcus, Lily, and the puppy who had healed a broken heart. As she read, tears fell quietly. She whispered, "I wish I had someone like that." Suddenly, she heard rustling. From the brush near the tree, a young German Shepherd pup emerged. Muddy, thin, eyes wide and alert. He limped slightly, but there was something familiar in his gaze. Elena knelt, stunned. The pup walked to her, pressed his head into her chest, and let out the softest, almost whisper-like sigh. The park was silent, and in that moment, it was as if the legacy had chosen to live again. She named him Echo,